Alright, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded a video. By the way, for any of you guys still wondering, the funded series is still going on, but like I did promise in that video, the next video I would make, I would be funded. And I'm excited for you guys to see the next episode when it is ready to come out. It is going to take a while. I would estimate within the next 2 weeks we should have an episode out. You guys there, so for those of you guys that have been waiting patiently, thank you for that. And it will still be coming out, right? The series isn't like ended or anything like that. It's in the progress. Okay, anyways, that is not the only account I do trade. I do trade my own personal accounts, and I wanted to kind of do like a month overview, talk about some of the better trades, some of the worst trades I took this month. You guys can see I did end up putting on some of the executions. I'm gonna be going over 2 of my best trades this month and 2 of my worst trades this month in terms of risk reward, P&L, and all that stuff, right? I'm not gonna be disclosing any numbers just because I don't like to do that, but I will be sharing you guys like our numbers, and we're gonna be going over some stats. Okay, so let's do that first. So using my journal that I shared with you guys, if you guys haven't checked out that video, you can check it out on the channel called Ned's Trades, or I'll post a link to it in the description down below. It's a free trading journal made on Google Sheets for you guys, and you guys can see there's a lot of different stuff that's offered. If you want a full overview, there's like a 30-minute video where I go in depth into every single thing this journal has to offer, how you guys can use it, and all that good stuff. So if you guys are interested, click that link in the description down below. Like I said, there's no paid, I'm not getting paid or anything like that. It's just completely free for you guys, and it's just something I like to contribute back to the trading community. So this is my total account balance that I have in the account. So technically I could lose 542 trades in a row until I reach zero on the account, right? We've had a really good start to the year, so we're up about 116% on the total account value. Now I do trade, I wouldn't say it's a small account size, but I don't trade with like my full capital, right? So I like to reset my account value at the start of every month, or usually I tend to do that. And I have like a set amount that I like to trade with, just because I feel like that's a good amount for me, and I don't want to have all my capital on the line at all times. So it can be a little bit misleading because again, I do not trade with like the full capital at my disposal. So my account could easily be 10 times the size it is, and then this number would get reduced by 10 times, right? But just an FYI, this number is pretty high because I do tend to risk a lot of my percent of my account on every single trade that I take. Okay, there we go. All right, so I fixed the number. I figured out what was wrong. Okay, now these are correct numbers. So you guys can see I started the account with about 250 R, and then now since it's grown about double, now we're sitting around 542 R, which is great. So in February we've already made about 25 R, but if we're looking at just January, we made about 266 R, which is still really good number. And you guys can see that my P&L tends to kind of grow exponentially. The reason why the first couple weeks were pretty slow is because whenever I get some big reset, like a new year starting, I kind of like to take things slow until I build a cushion. Then once I build a cushion of 5R, then I'm willing to start risking a little bit more. Then I build up another cushion of 7R, so then the next week I have a cushion of like 12, 13R, and so I'm willing to kind of risk that and reset back to 0. Worst case scenario, but best case scenario, something like this happens where then I'm able to kind of push how much I'm really able to make. Was able to make 52R, which only allows me to push even harder the next week, double that, 106R. And then once you get to a pretty high point, then it becomes harder to kind of like double that. You know, it's pretty hard to double 100R in a single week. So then the next week starts to become just incrementally better, but still an increase from the previous week. And this is not going to happen the entire year. You're not going to see me start hitting like 1,000 Rs in a week, because again, I do end up resetting my account monthly. But at least for the start of the year, it's going to be kind of dramatic like that. But then, like I said, the rest of the year is going to be a lot more consistent to these kind of weeks. And of course I will end up having red weeks down the line. So we had a pretty good month. Profitability is 4.58. I do not expect it at all to stay that high. It's definitely eventually going to come down. But for now, you know, because we have a limited data set, these numbers are going to be a little bit, especially since we did have such a good first start to the month. It's going to be higher than usual, I would say, Win rate, this will stay about 67%, maybe a little bit lower. It tends to be at the lowest point. I do not want it to go below like 55%. Like if it's around 55%, that's where I start to think maybe market conditions are changing. Maybe I need to adjust something. And then on the high ends, sometimes we'll hit into the 70%, but it's very hard to sustain it up there. So around 62 to 65% is where it's at. Right now it's at 67%, so a little bit higher than normal. But it tends to be around the 60%. This is total R profit we've made and total R loss. And then if you look at the average R loss, average R win, we lose about 1.09 on our losers, and we make about 2.41 R. Our R return is pretty high, is because a lot of our trades, because most of the time I'm dealing with multiple contracts on a single trade, they'll get split into individual trades because I like to size in, size out. And so on an individual basis, like each trade, I'm risking very little. But the reason our return is so high is because a single trade could end up being like 5-8. Like it's not rare for me to hit 5-8 R trades, both in terms of wins and losses. So even though our average R loss is -1, if I really counted a single trade with all of its executions included, like some of our best trades this month were about 40 R in a single trade. And again, that sounds pretty insane, but realistically, I was risking about 5 to 10 R, right? So like the total trade with every single execution, entry and out and exit. So realistically, they're 40 R trades, right, on paper. But if you want to look at it in a practical way, they were really only like 4 to 8 R trades, if that makes sense. Same with my losses. Like my biggest losses this year were about, or not this year, but this month so far, were about 8 to 10 R. But because the trade is split up by the executions, it ends up being like 2 R, -2 R, -2 R, -2 R. Like that's how it shows up. And that's why in the average out ends up being, and I do end up taking a lot of actual -1 R trades and smaller wins like that as well. Like let me go take a look at how many trades I took this month so far. So I took 230 trades so far in January, or actually no, including January and February so far. So so this 292 R return is after 200, what did I say? 230 trades? After 230 trades. So on a per trade basis, I'm making about 1 point something R, if that makes sense, okay? So yeah, that's a look at my stats so far. Now let's actually head over to the executions. So because I did take 230 trades, there's no way there is a way, but I'm not going to spend hours marking up my trading view to show you guys every single execution. It'd just be way too much for no reason. So I just decided to go ahead and show you guys the 2 best trades and the 2 worst trades. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the 2 worst trades that I took this month. The first one doesn't look too bad. And it wasn't that bad. It's just I sized pretty heavily on this trade compared to other trades. And also the arrow here, I just marked it there because if I put it in there, it's a little bit harder to see. My entry wasn't at the bottom, obviously. My entry was more like right there. And my exit wasn't at the top here. My exit was more like right there. So if you actually mark it to where it was, you can see that pretty decent size loss if we actually go ahead and measure that. These are 5-minute candles, by the way, on NQ. That was about 40 points loss, okay? So it looked small, wasn't that small of a loss, okay? Just to make things clear there. Reason why I liked taking this trade for the upside, there's a couple things I liked. So I had just exited out of a pretty nice short trade, which we'll cover in a little bit. But we started seeing this kind of price action where it started kind of basing here, where we were getting, look, we got a fresh low, no real continuation. Then we came down, kind of made a double bottom here, started pushing up higher, eventually came lower, made a new low, but not much continuation. Once we started kind of seeing this type of action, I'm like kind of expecting a bottom to come out. Then similar thing here, we came here, kind of basically a double bottom, and we got this strong push here. After we got this strong push here, that's where I kind of flip bias to the upside, right? But I didn't take an entry right away. I kind of want to see a little bit more, right? So the trend starts establishing here. So you can see low, high, higher low, higher high. Really nice push. I like to see that. Higher low compared to this low. Once we start establishing that low and then we push higher, that's very bullish action, at least in my eyes, right? And then you can also see zone to zone trading here. Kind of from this zone to this zone to this next zone. So then we made a higher high, higher low, higher high. Trends right here, super healthy, super nice. Then we kind of break that trend. So here's where stuff gets like, okay, a little bit concerned, but look at the way we react once buyers step back in. Really aggressive buy, push, make new highs. So the fact that we were breaking the trend gets kind of invalidated, and it's fine. This was also during market open, so I put less importance when trends get broken, key levels get broken during the first 20 minutes of market open, because I just know that you kind of have to give a little bit more room, because it is market open where volatility is higher. There's a lot of orders coming in, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to set the precedent, is that the right word, for the rest of the day. So I put less importance when this gets broken, specifically in this time area of market open, which is 6:30 a.m. PST. But then once we get this, I'm like, okay, that's confirming that this trend right here wants to continue, and I'm gonna look for a little pullback to get in. Unfortunately, I missed the pullback to get in, so I just said, okay, I'm just gonna make an entry here. I think we're gonna break highs here. That's my thesis. And then once we break those highs, we should at least come over here, test these levels, to continue that trend. And potentially we're going to end up reversing all of this move here. So my ultimate target was somewhere up here, back to these levels where we previously rejected. Now, once we get to that point, I think we can potentially continue that downtrend if that's going to be the case. But I think we should come up here and test these levels. So that was my thesis, right, on the trade. This is the price action that kind of made me go bullish, especially these strong buys here made me go bullish. So I made that entry there. But once I was proving incorrect, once it went 40 points against me, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm probably not correct on that. So I ended up taking the exit somewhere around there. It's also breaking below this zone. I really wanted this to hold, so I gave it some room to see if it would hold, but nope, got a really strong rejection and just broke right through that. So I'm like, okay, I gotta take the loss. Ended up taking the loss there. That was about a negative AR trade for me, and not great, but it was just coming off a pretty big winner there, so it didn't affect me too much, but was a little unfortunate there. And then if you go look at our next biggest loss, kind of the same idea here where we got this move down. I didn't end up flipping right away to short. Once I take a big loss like this, I like to let price do its thing. So price came down, kind of similar to here how these big moves made me turn bullish. This move was like, okay, maybe this overall trend that we've been seeing here is going to continue, and we're going to see the next leg lower, right? So but I'm not just going to jump in, so I waited for that first pullback, see how bulls and bears are going to react. So once we see some buys start coming in, I want to see if sellers going to step right back in or not. We start seeing this kind of trend starting to establish where we get low, high, higher low, higher high. So I'm like, maybe this was kind of impulse, right? And like, just because we had seen that big move, we kind of saw another equal and opposite reaction, right? But we're going to start basing this, like, this is like the buy zone here. It's kind of been establishing here before, might start establishing again. So we might start pushing up. But this gets all sold off. So I'm like, okay, no, this move actually here wasn't just like an impulse thing. This is actually maybe the start of a new trend. So then we get market open, futures open, and we get immediately selling off. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking that's going to set the precedent for the rest of the session. I'm just going to wait for that bounce. And once we get that bounce, I'm going to step in and go short. I wait for a bounce basically at this level. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump in. I jump in, go short, and price kind of goes sideways. I'm like, okay, that sucks. But it is overnight session, so that is to be expected. Consolidate gets tighter in the range, and then we break to the upside. Not great. I should have ideally stopped out at this point, but I was like, it's overnight session. I'm going to give it some room. Let's wait for it to reach this zone, right, which is the next zone I have drawn. I wasn't in too heavy compared to this trade, so I'm like, I'm going to give it room, potentially add to the short once we get to higher prices. We start seeing some pretty bullish candles here in the overnight session, so I'm like, let's just see how it reacts to the zone. Get a reaction off the zone, which I like, but obviously I'm still red on the trade at this point, so just gonna sit on my hands and see if we get that further rejection. If we do, might potentially add to the trade. Get another buy up, make new highs, but instantly reject. So the new highs was not great, but we instantly rejected, so I was like, great. And then we actually break these lows here. So high, new low, lower high here too, lower low, or actually no, I don't think that makes new lows, but tested those lows. I'm like, at this point I'm saying it's looking all right. Maybe this new trend is establishing right off the supply zone. Okay, gonna keep holding. Then we come back up, make new highs, but not too convincing. We kind of start rejecting. So I'm like, maybe similar situation like here. Start consolidating, and then we start making these new highs, rejecting new highs, rejecting while in this zone. But then here it starts, at this point I'm like, okay, nice, 2 big red candles, instantly reverse. I'm like, very big red sign, and we're in the zone. Looks like we're kind of flipping it. Previous resistance is turning into support, not a good sign. And then as we break new highs there pretty aggressively, I'm like, okay, it's gotta get rid of that hopium and just exit the trade. Ends up being a pretty big red trade there. Let's see, that one was about 68 points. Again, I gave it more room. This ends up being also a negative AR trade. The reason they're the same is because I different size, right? Because this is overnight session, I'm not going to enter the same size as I would a normal trade, and this one was already an elevated size even compared to my other intraday trades. So smaller size, so I gave it more room, and I shouldn't have to. It was a poor decision on me to give it more room. But sometimes we think just because we're experienced traders, we can have a little bit more discretion, which I talked about in previous videos before, in my previous talks with Zero, about that discretion topic. Ultimately, it wasn't the right choice, but it happens, right? And at the end of the day, it was negative AR. Like I said, some of my big winners ended up being like 40 R, so it wasn't like a disastrous loss, but it ended up being one of the bigger losses that I took this month. So that was that trade. That was kind of my reasoning for why I ended up holding. That was my reasoning for the entry and all that good stuff. So those were the two biggest losses I took this month. Now let's head over to some of the winners. Let's start off with this one. This one was first. So this one here, the reason I made an entry, this one is kind of, I can simplify it down to the H pattern, which I've talked about a lot in the past. This wasn't a 50% retracement. So if we look at, it wasn't quite a 50% retracement, but the reason I ended up taking it before it hit 50% retracement on the H pattern, and if you want to know what the H pattern is, just look through my channel and you can probably find videos where I talk about it. These wicks right here, I was really liking them, right? Because I had a bearish thesis. Why did I have a bearish thesis? This kind of big move kind of made me turn bearish. I think I did end up trading part of this, but didn't make the cut for top 2 trades of the month. Then we got a bounce off this demand zone, and then we started seeing action here where I was like, okay, bears might be wanting to step in, get a nice reaction, almost equal opposite reaction, get new highs, instant rejection, get new highs, instant rejection. Once I start seeing that, similarly to what I said over here, new lows, no continuation, new lows, no continuation, new lows, no continuation, double bottom. Once you start seeing that type of action, new highs, no continuation, new highs, no continuation, that tells me this trend is potentially topping out. Then we get this big reaction and I'm like, okay, boom, I like that. Let's just wait for a pullback and jump in. So we got that pullback and I jump in, okay? That's why I ended up liking the short here. And then in this specific spot, why I liked it was because the wicks, if we go into a little bit of a smaller time frame, let's go 3 minutes. You can see that we were trying to see these red candles here, and price was struggling to stay up here, right? And it wasn't like the price action just wasn't looking strong. I don't know how much better I can explain that, right? So I made an entry there. Let's go back to 5 minute, just prefer it because these are a little bit longer time frame trades. Made an entry there and almost instantly got the reaction I was looking for. Broke new lows here, so now we have that trend established. High, you can say kind of low here, lower high there, new low there, lower high, and then sorry, and then we get new lows, then we get a lower low, and then we get that big nice reaction there. And initially my target was actually like somewhere right here, but because of like how aggressive their reaction was, like clearing right through that zone, I'm like, okay, let's wait for next zone. Come to the next zone, do get a bounce here. This would have been obviously the ideal exit. It was just a key previous zone in the past, but I didn't end up taking the exit, and I actually let this trade like go against me basically all the way back to break even. And at this point I was green about over 100 points, right? So seeing that basically go back up 100 points to all the way back to break even, that was not easy. And I did not take any early exits on this trade, I believe, because this trade was a smaller size. I probably would have had some early exits here, but it was smaller size, so I didn't end up taking the exit there. I regretted that because at the end of the day, it wasn't really worth it to capture I only ended up capturing 20, 30 more points, and I had to hold for so many more hours. So I actually don't like the fact that I let it reverse on me that much. So that wasn't great, but I let it reverse on me, and then eventually it came all the way back down. And this run up did kind of happen end of day. So this entry was around 10 a.m., so 2 hours about market close. Once I made this entry, and once I decided I was going to hold through this, I had decided I was going to swing this trade. So that's why I was kind of hesitant to sell here, because we only had like 2 hours left until market closed. So I'm like, what is the likeliness we're going to reverse this right going into close? Very little. Unfortunately, sometimes what you think, I don't know what the market's going to do. So what I think the probability of something happening, how accurate that is I don't know. It probably isn't accurate at all. But in my feeling, what I think my experience is, I thought the probability of this reversing was unlikely. That's why I didn't take the sell there. I thought this was going to turn into a potential multi-day trend, which is why I, like I said, didn't sell there, and I didn't expect us to see this aggressive of a move going into close. So I ended up just taking it there. This trade ended up being about 30R. But like I kind of explained earlier, if I'm being realistic about the R, I probably would have given it like 5R to work out. So it's more like a 6R trade here. So let's call it a 6R trade. But nice trade overall. Kind of lucky that it ended up working out for us, but it did, and that ended up being one of our bigger trades this month. The next one is a little bit better. Didn't have any 100-point bounces on us. And that's the thing, right? There's a podcast, or not a podcast, an interview I really like about a trader that talks about this, but it's like, should you be okay with a trade reversing on you this much? I think in this case it was a little bit too extreme. 100 points. No, it's just because of the scenario it was in and what I thought price was gonna do. I let it do it. I let it do that, but most of the time I wouldn't let a trade reverse on me 100 points. But it depends what type of trade I'm going for. Like I said, the reason I held this was because I kind of had convinced myself I was going to let it swing. And I was looking for that potential 200, 300 point move. It didn't end up being that. The total points gain on this trade ended up being about 150. So it didn't hit that 200, 300 mark that I was kind of looking for. Anyways, let's move on to the next trade. So this one, I ended up taking a shorts around here. Reason why I like the shorts was because we saw this topping out action here that I've kind of already described in this video, where you see stuff like new highs, no continuation, new highs, no continuation, new highs, no real continuation. Then you kind of start seeing these more aggressive sells, more aggressive sells, more aggressive sells, more aggressive sells. You did see this aggressive buy here, but you didn't make any fresh highs there, so whatever. And then you get another basically equal opposite reaction there. You get this lower low, lower high, and then the trend kind of continues. Eventually you sell off that entire aggressive buy there, and so those people have to stop out. Then here you come into market open, so I wanted to wait to see what market open would do. Then we kind of get this aggressive sell here. Ideally I would have got an entry somewhere here. So I'm a little bit mad I missed out on those little extra points there, extra 50 something points there. Got that aggressive sell. Obviously I'm not going to chase that move, so I waited for that bounce. To this zone. That's where I ended up taking my entry. Again, the reason why I like to sell, this looked like a zone where we were kind of topping out. This was like topping out action in my opinion, and then we got this aggressive sell, and that really convinced me. Okay, let's go bearish. Let's wait for that bounce and then enter. Waited for the bounce, entered, got a nice move right away, but I was looking for that bigger trade, so didn't take any profits. Came back with a little bit red on the trade for a little bit, but eventually kind of that move continued. Again, was looking for that bigger trade, was looking for that swing trade. So like I said, coming into close here, Market closed around here, so I had already decided I was gonna swing this trade. So let it do its thing. Kind of sold off. I think we did have earnings this day. Yeah, we did have earnings this day, so that was a big contributor to the reason we sold off in after hours, because this is after hours and usually you don't see that big of a move. So there was a risk going into this trade that we were gonna, this could have easily went against me, but I thought the support here was strong enough, or the resistance was strong enough that it wouldn't really break through. And worst case scenario, I get stopped out and lose like 510R. This ended up being like a 40R winner here. So but like I said, practically it was more of a, let's say I would have risked 10R because of the more added risk factor of earnings. So about a 4R trade at the end of the day. But yeah, got that nice reaction off earnings. Obviously, once you get a big reaction like that, especially caused by an event sort of reason, I like to let trades work out a little bit more. So then we saw that continuation. Once we saw this pretty aggressive move, I ended up taking profits there on half of the position, then let the other position ride a little bit more. That first contract was for about 200 points, if I remember correctly. 250 points looks like. And then that third contract, at this point I let it like move against me a little bit more because I had already locked in half of the position, and this was kind of going into the zone, so I expected it to reject off that. It did, made new lows, and then kind of came up here. This was FOMC, I believe. Yeah, this was FOMC. So there was an added factor, but since I was already in the green so much, I'm like, do I want to hold through FOMC? Potentially, because the worst case scenario, I get stopped out and I still walk away with a decent win because we had already locked in 250 points. Or best case scenario, FOMC goes in our favor and we can really get a nice big winner. Kind of went against us initially, but we were still in the green at this point, so I wasn't really sweating too much about it. And then we did get that nice rejection there. Ended up taking off the last contract. I think it was perfectly, like, this happened on accident. I didn't mean to do it, but it ended up being exactly 300 points. So this has 311 points. It ended up being exactly 300 points. I remember that. So that was cool. And took that exit there, and also kind of ended up being the bottom. Okay, no, let's be honest. The exit was not down here. The exit was more like there. So not exactly the bottom. There was like 10-20 points off the bottom, but really solid trade that ended up being our best trade of the month. So yeah, that's about all I got for you guys. Hopefully you guys like that kind of month overview. Depending on I think I'll try to continue doing these the rest of the year. And let me know if you guys enjoyed that, and if you guys were able to take something from looking at a little bit of an insight on my trades. And hopefully I gave a good enough explanation on like kind of why I make certain choices, and either good or bad, right? And had a really solid January to start off the year. So hope you guys did too. And yeah, other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching again, and best of luck in your guys' training. But yeah, see you guys later. Peace.